So from that system, what it would look like? That system would have to exert first bigger government and more regulation, then more coercion, then more control, then more division of this person's your enemy within this system. And all of those things, every single thing I just said, as the needle moved more and more towards more and more coercion, control, more manipulation of information, more control of information, more of control of everything you do inside a system that steals from you at an ever greater rate, and is exactly the opposite of the free market, but has to get worse and worse and worse.
Every generation faces a moment when it must decide what kind of future it wants to live in. Today, that choice comes down to two systems, one built on manipulation and fear, and another built on truth and freedom. In his latest interview, Jeff Booth paints a stark picture of the world we've inherited, a fiat system that has to keep expanding, lying, and stealing just to survive. As he puts it, this isn't a free market anymore. It's a machine that feeds on control, a system that keeps printing money, expanding government, and dividing people just to stay alive. But the harder it tries to fix itself, the worse it becomes. Look around. The numbers tell the story. Since 1971, when the dollar was unanchored from gold, the value of money has fallen by nearly 90%, while global debt has exploded to over $320 trillion. Wages haven't kept up, housing has become unaffordable, and entire generations now work harder for less. Booth calls this what it is: theft, hidden behind the illusion of progress. Every policy meant to save the economy only deepens the wound. And as he says, the more the system decays, the more it must rely on control, censorship, propaganda, regulation, and fear to keep people from realizing the truth. But that's where Bitcoin enters the story. Bitcoin wasn't born as a get-rich-quick scheme or another speculative asset. It was born as an act of rebellion, a new system built to restore the honesty that the old one destroyed. Booth calls it the alternative system, one that flips the incentives completely. Instead of debt, it's built on ownership. Instead of coercion, it's built on choice. Instead of manipulation, it runs on math and transparency. But here's his warning. Even among Bitcoiners, many are still trapped between two worlds. They talk about freedom, but live in fear. They hold Bitcoin, but their energy still fuels the very system they say they've left behind. Booth calls this the belief trap, and escaping it is the first real step toward freedom. In this video, we'll explore Jeff Booth's powerful new analysis, how the fiat system is collapsing under its own weight, how Bitcoin is quietly building a parallel world, and why Booth believes this transition will change everything from money to mindset. And as the interview unfolds, he'll reveal what's coming next for the markets, for investors, and for the future of the U.S. economy. If you value deep, honest conversations about where the world is heading, please take a second to like this video, subscribe, and join us for the full discussion ahead. Thanks, and enjoy the video.
The systems are complete opposites, right?
Mhm.
They're complete opposites. And one system, and let's say the emotions of the system, or let's say the principles of the system first, and then the emotions of that system would cause. So the natural state of the free market is deflation, which I say all of the time, right? And that is true, for sure true. And prices in that system fall to the marginal cost of production. That is true, for sure true. There can't be a monopoly for long in that system. That is true, for sure true, because the margin gained by the monopoly attracts more competition to solve problems faster. That's for sure true. In that in that system, add more people to that system, more abundance for the entire world. That is for sure true. In that system, the only way you could win more from somebody else is not by rent sinking, is by providing more value to somebody else. And then as soon as you provide more value to somebody else, somebody's going to compete against you to try to create more value for those people. So in that system, you're playing an infinite game versus a zero-sum game. And all of the feelings in that new system would be different because competition and cooperation would be the same, right? So you and I could compete in a business, but we both win from both of us competing in a business, because Bitcoin in that is all prices are falling to the marginal cost of production, all prices are falling, all value is increasing for everybody in that system forever. And it's an honest ledger, right? So the reflection back at society would be the more people that knew that, truly knew that, would be more honesty, right? The feeling that would give you, the hope that would give you, the feelings, the abundance that would give society would be a totally different feeling. So when I say I live in that system as much as I can, right? So I still purchase, I try to purchase everything Bitcoin, but I can't ever, but as much as I can. And when I moved my energy to that by creating ego death, the truth is I couldn't see before I jumped and said, I can't do this thing. The hypocrisy of saying one thing and doing another in me was too much. I had to move my time and energy into the system I said I wanted to do. Even though for a long time I didn't move my energy. I was straddling both worlds, right? Telling myself a lie that I needed to make enough money in the other system to buy Bitcoin. It wasn't until I moved that my perspective changed. Why did my perspective change? Perspective changed because I was congruent with the world that I said I wanted. And then the reflection back, all of the people and all of the businesses that we were able to invest in and help, I wouldn't have seen those businesses. I wouldn't have been able to influence those businesses. I wouldn't have been part of this. I feel so fortunate, like so crazy fortunate that I get to do this every day with people I love. So from my life, it's just gotten better and better and better and better. And I recognize I wouldn't have seen it from the narrow view of reality I had before. So now let's go to the other system, what that system looks like. A credit-based system can't allow the free market. The money is lent into existence with an interest rate. So meaning people are stuck with usury interest rate on money that didn't exist. And that interest rate and that credit has to expand exponentially and steal more and more of what the free market does. So from that system, what it would look like? That system would have to exert first bigger government and more regulation, then more coercion, then more control, then more division of this person's your enemy within this system. And all of those things, every single thing I just said, as the needle moved more and more towards more and more coercion, control, more manipulation of information, more control of information, more of control of everything you do inside a system that steals from you at an ever greater rate and is exactly the opposite of the free market, but has to get worse and worse and worse. Every single action from within that system would get worse. Try to name one problem from that system that could be solved by printing more money. So think about the thing you fear most about in that system. It could be solved. Anything you care about, and ask yourself, how could this problem be resolved by more printing of money? And you'll see all problems get worse. And then from that system that 99.9% of the world is living from, giving this preying on their energy, and they're fighting within it and moving to nihilism, despair, or fear, because it's denominated by fear and control. It is based on a lie, but it's a perceived lie that most people believe. And they're giving their energy to that almost uniquely. And so what you're asking is, when will they stop giving their energy to the thing that's taking their energy? And that's a hard thing for me to answer because they could do it just like I did it anytime, and they would see a different world. But they don't know because they're caught in a belief trap that is their own making in the belief trap. And their view of reality is inside that belief trap, which looks totally different than my view of reality. And now ask what it looks for different Bitcoiners and different everything. There's a whole bunch of Bitcoiners that are now worried about Bitcoin price because they're still caught in that belief trap, just measuring that belief trap by something that they want to go up within that belief trap, right? So as these different ideas of the world collide into each other, right? Everybody's going to choose their own thing. And sometimes you don't see, like, you so believe the world from your own beliefs. It's just a mirror reflecting back at you. I did too. Like, and that's why I'm honest with my vulnerability in there. So other people will see their own vulnerability in there too. And they can see that it's just a belief trap. I believed I was doing the right thing for Bitcoin and doing the right thing for the world while I was straddling both lines. But the truth is 90% of my energy, 95% of my energy was in the existing system, and I had a hedge against it in Bitcoin. And it wasn't until I realized the hypocrisy in me that I moved all my energy into Bitcoin and everything got better. But that was outside of my knowledge of information for a while. And I didn't want to face the hypocrisy in myself, the ego of telling myself I was helping the world while I was 95% of my energy was burning it down.
Jeff Booth begins with the foundation of his argument. The natural state of a free market isn't inflation, it's deflation. When technology drives progress, prices fall, not rise. In that world, everyone benefits from innovation. Monopolies can't last, and progress compounds in ways that make life better for all. That's the kind of world Bitcoin makes possible, one where competition and cooperation are no longer enemies, but allies. Booth says that once he stopped living halfway between the two systems, once he moved his energy fully into Bitcoin, everything changed. He found more meaning, more honesty, and more abundance than the fiat world ever promised. But his insight goes far deeper than personal transformation. He believes humanity is now standing between two realities, one decaying, one just beginning. The fiat world, driven by debt and fear, is breaking apart. The Bitcoin world, built on truth and openness, is quietly rising to take its place. Booth says these systems will collide for years, but the outcome depends on each person's choice, where you direct your time, your energy, and your belief. And that's where the story leads next, to how this collision is unfolding, and what it means for every investor, every builder, and every citizen living through this historic transition.
So in other words, these two systems, I'm going to paraphrase what you're saying. These two systems will collide into each other for a long time, and each person in the world will choose which, and how much of which. And their choice of which one will determine their view of reality and if their life is getting better or worse. That's it. And and similar to the founding fathers of the US, it was a small percentage of people that actually understood that that each man is created free, and the Constitution and individual rights and freedoms, and protecting those. That was so different than anything that came before it. That was the rise of America, because it was a free market, and those ideas could flourish, and that people could provide value. And that was when you looked at the Great Deflation in the late 1800s, that was the rise of America. And all of these ideas, because people moved out of the belief trap in other areas so that they could have that individual rights. Those individual rights were more ideas competing in the market that could outperform any market. And then that system got captured by banking, and we went down. And so how did the system get captured by banking? And then could that same thing play out in Bitcoin? Could the system get captured? And so when I say it stays decentralized, because it doesn't actually matter what I'm saying right now is if it stays decentralized and secure. And if it stays decentralized and secure, which you have agency in, and it doesn't take very many people to realize that they have agencies and run nodes, and then are building privacy tech like Fedi on top, or Fediment on top, so to prevent what's coming. It actually doesn't take very many people. It takes enough people to protect that decentralization and security from all of the nonsense in the world. And eventually people will figure it out, because they're going to get killed in the other system. And when I say killed, like it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And sometimes people have to hit bottom before they open up. So in Bitcoin, I something on Nostra the other day that I've thought a lot about. The consciousness within a system would repeat back. right? If you were playing in a zero-sum game and you thought the only way to win that zero-sum game is and you've always lived in a zero-sum game, your consciousness would probably evolve from that zero-sum game, where that was just a way of life. You just that's what, and so you'd see, and so I think whether you saw Bitcoin first from a higher energy consciousness, you saw a totally different game that this could resolve, or you were in Bitcoin for long enough that you saw by your actions inside a new game. I think what happens is by the actions in a new game, you increase society's consciousness. When I look at friends in Bitcoin, when I look at people who've been in this for a long time and start to and watch their lives and how they react, and how they used to react inside the other system, and now how they react as they're moving to, I think those two things are one and the same. I think it moves to a different level, and it's from that level that you can actually see all of these actions clearly, and they don't have to affect you. You can care deeply about people. You can understand their view of the world, but you don't need to change them tomorrow. You just be you.
What percentage is it that we need? Like, what do we need to get to of people changing and being educated and understanding, so that these, the wars and rumors of wars and all kinds of things going on in the world, that pressure and noise starts to ratchet back the other direction?
That pressure and noise doesn't touch me. So I know it's going to be there. I know this can be there for a long time. I know so could I let it touch me? Could I let my fear take that, or could I let fear into my life to take my energy from the system I'm building? Yeah, of course I could. But I don't, right? I live in a different energy, and I realize that system must try to create fear, and it must try to say, those people are bad. We're going to go to war. All of the things that are going to come out of the other day, all of these things inside that system, wanting to pull you back into the energy of that system. And I realize that most of the world lives there, and they're reflecting back and making it stronger. I just don't need to, right? So I can live in love. I can live in abundance. I can live in seeing people like that wherever they are, right? And then from that, do I still? I moved to the States because I go to Canada because Canada's trending more towards there. So am I still aware of designing flexibility into my life so that I don't get caught somewhere? Of course I am. Am I aware of how much control the system has over the average person? Of course I am. But I can't do anything about that. Nothing. The only thing I can do for me, for my family, for everybody who wants to live, is live in and try to expand this as fast as I can. Why? Because I want to. Because that's the world I want to live in.
As Jeff explains, this transition isn't a single event. It's a process already underway. Every individual is making a choice, consciously or not, about which system to live in. In the same way early Americans chose freedom over monarchy, today's innovators are choosing decentralization over control. Booth compares it to the founding of America, when a small minority understood the radical idea that freedom wasn't granted by rulers, it was claimed by individuals. That spark created the most productive and prosperous society in history. But over time, that system was captured, first by banks, then by bureaucracy, until freedom itself became collateral for debt. Now, Bitcoin gives us a second chance. And as the old system keeps inflating, censoring, and decaying, more people will inevitably wake up and move their energy into something real, something honest. That's why Booth is so optimistic. Because despite all the fear, the wars, and the noise, the shift towards sound money and open systems is accelerating. Each crisis in the fiat world only fuels Bitcoin's adoption. Institutions are learning, nations are watching, builders are creating. What started as a spark is now a global network of individuals choosing freedom over fear. And as Booth often reminds us, this isn't just about money, it's about consciousness. It's about moving from scarcity to abundance, from ego to truth, from control to cooperation. So, as investors and thinkers, we all face the same question. Are we straddling both systems, or are we ready to live fully in the one we believe in? Jeff Booth's message is clear. The future is being built by those who have already made that choice. And share your thoughts in the comments. Which system do you believe in? The one built on debt and fear, or the one built on truth and freedom? If you found this conversation as powerful as we did, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.